Supercars are all about driving and drama. They're built to provide brutal speed and draw a crowd wherever they're parked. What they're not so good at typically is being comfortable or versatile. Still, if you want to daily drive something exotic, well, this could be the perfect option. The 570 GT is part of McLaren's Sports Series, a range of more attainable, though still outlandishly capable cars. Based on the 570S Coupe, this model has been softened and civilized to make it the British brand's most livable vehicle ever. Thanks to that added refinement and practicality, you should think of this as more long-legged Grand Tourer than track day toy, even if it still features a carbon fiber chassis, mid-mounted engine, and racing-grade brakes. Engineers have done 4 important things to make the 570 GT a car you won't be afraid to drive to the office on, say, a Tuesday. Now, compared to the 570S Coupe, they've softened its springs by 15% up front and 10% at the rear. Next, the electro-hydraulic steering rack's ratio has been reduced by 2% for smoother driver inputs at speed. Point number 3, this car is also fitted with a quieter exhaust system, so it's more comfortable on long-distance drives. But perhaps the 570 GT's biggest enhancement is the addition of a side-hinged glass hatch. Now, not only does this give the car a much sleeker overall look, but it dramatically increases cargo capacity as well. The beautiful leather-trimmed touring deck, as it's called, provides nearly 8 cubic feet of luggage space, enough for a couple duffel bags or even a small rollerboard. Of course, you still have 5.3 cubes in the front trunk to hold even more cargo. Now, all of that being said, if you want the practicality of the 570 GT, but you still crave a slightly more dynamic drive, you can opt for the $5,950 Sport Pack, which basically gives you the 570S Coupe suspension and steering systems, and of course that's what this particular test car is equipped with. You gotta have all the goodies, right? Why not? It's not my money. This may be an overall more livable supercar, but it still requires plenty of gymnastics to get into or out of. The sills are wider than the base of a telephone pole, and once seated, your butt is so close to the ground, you look up to Mazda Miatas. Still, you've got to love those killer dihedral doors, which reveal a cabin trimmed in acres of creamy Napa leather. Buried deep underneath that flowing, organic bodywork is a high-winding 3.8-liter twin-turbo V8. It's rated at 562 horsepower, that's 570 PS, hence the car's name, and 443 pound-feet of twist. Now that torque is routed to the rear wheels through a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic gearbox, a combo that provides shocking acceleration. You know, even though this car is fitted with the optional Sport Pack I mentioned earlier, it's still quite placid. Even on roads that get battered by all 4 seasons, the 570 GT is still totally livable, with a ride that's never overly harsh. Further reducing unwanted ruckus are special foam-lined Pirelli P0 tires, and they help reduce cabin noise by up to 3 decibels. For enhanced driver choice, you can fine-tune how the car behaves. A pair of switches on the center stack independently adjust the chassis and powertrain, each step up the ladder providing more stiffness and a higher stability control threshold, along with faster gear changes and heightened engine responsiveness. The 570 GT steering is absolutely sublime. The weighting is quite heavy, almost like there's not a lot of power assistance, which I think is a good thing because it makes you feel really connected to the car. Beyond that, the wheel is so precise it makes you feel almost like a sniper because you can place this vehicle within millimeters of where you want it in the lane every single time. This dual-clutch transmission changes gears very quickly, and it can be shifted either up or down with each paddle, pushing or pulling accordingly, since it has just one pivot point. Forward visibility from the cockpit here is really quite good, though be warned, you have absolutely no idea where the nose of the car is, so you've got to be exceptionally careful when parking, otherwise you're going to damage that undoubtedly expensive bumper. As for visibility to the sides and rear, well, it's a little bit compromised to say the least. Out your mirrors, you're getting a nice shot of some vents, and at the rear, you ain't seeing nothing if you've got luggage with you. Now, if there's one disappointing aspect to the 570 GT, it's got to be the sound. The exhaust in this car is almost like one of those old hand dryers you find in a public restroom. It whirs and whooshes rather than rumbling like a proper high-performance V8 should. Still, it's impossible to argue with the results because this car can get from 0 to 62 miles an hour in a claimed 3.4 seconds, though honestly, it feels a lot faster than that. It'll deliver twice that speed, 200 km/h in less than 10 seconds. Top speed is 204 miles an hour. This V8 has a couple other interesting tricks up its sleeve. One is called cylinder cut. When you've got the thing in sport mode and you're driving at a moderate speed and you want heavy acceleration, the engine will actually stop firing cylinders for a split second to allow the transmission to change gears faster. Another thing it does is called Inertia Push. If you've got the settings in track mode and you're at high speed and demand high acceleration, it will actually close the clutch for the upshift gear a little bit faster than it normally would. In fact, before the engine revs have dropped, and it takes the inertia of the rotating assembly to give you a little burst of acceleration. Pretty clever. Despite being ridiculously fast in typical driving situations, the 570 GT is rather laid back. You see, the engine takes a while to catch its breath. There is a bit of turbo lag. Also, when you've got the transmission in normal mode, it can be kind of pokey when taking off from an intersection or a stop. Carbon ceramic brakes are standard equipment on this model, which is probably gross overkill for use on the street. Now, if you'd rather, iron rotors are optional. But when it comes to braking, it's also kind of unfortunate because pedal effort is super high. You've got to really lean into this thing to bring the car to a stop, which is frankly kind of scary the first time you take it out, though fortunately this quirk is something you do get used to after a few miles in the saddle. Oddly enough, I did have one other issue with the brakes in this car. Twice it happened to me, the engine would not start. I had the key in my pocket, I was hitting the brake pedal, I was pushing the stop-start button, no go. Ultimately, after about 5 minutes of frustration, I finally really wrenched down on the brake pedal and the engine started. So you really do have to apply quite a bit of pressure to that pedal before it registers. So far, we've covered engine output, acceleration, and even cargo capacity, but as always, there are more numbers of note, like fuel economy. Now, the 570 GT here should sticker at 16 miles per gallon in city driving, 23 on the highway. Scores that result in a combined rating of 19 mpg, which means owners should not have to pay the gas guzzler tax. There's also pricing. A base version goes for just about 200 grand, but this one with a few options and of course delivery fees tacked on, well, it checked out for $236,220. But what's worth keeping and what should be curbed? Well, let's recap. Just as soon as I can stand up since my legs have fallen asleep. Come on, let's go. The 570 GT's sniper-inspired steering, everyday usability, startling speed, and flowing design are some of its best attributes. However, I wish they'd improve the leaf blower exhaust note, make that brake pedal a little more responsive, and bolster the engine's low-end performance. The 570 GT offers tons of driver engagement and speed, all with more drama than an entire season of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Now, if this is entry level, I can't imagine what one of McLaren's more exclusive cars is like to drive. Still, this is something exceptionally special and a welcome alternative to your more typical Italian exotic. Hey you, yeah you just watched this video, it was great, it was a new curb, come on. So why don't you do us all a favor and subscribe, that way you never miss any of them. Just hit the button, couldn't be easier.